Well, Scott's getting that set up. Thanks very much for inviting me along tonight to talk about a topic that's close to my heart. So I've been involved, coaching at the girls' football for the last 6 years. So some of what I'm going through tonight, as well as having the theoretical background from my sports psychology training, it will be, practical experience. That's the one, Scott. Practical experience that I've actually lived as a coach as well. And if it wasn't for having 3 daughters, I might well be sitting on this side of the room like you guys are doing tonight. So, just as we're getting logged in here, as Scott said, I've been doing sports psychology training really for the last 10 years. I did a Masters at Edinburgh University, and then followed on from that. I take it to the next level with British Association of Sport and Exercise Scientists, so I'm accredited with them, specialising in sports psychology. So, I've entitled today's workshop, Coaching for Long-Term Success. And we'll build into that as it goes on, but as I say, I think this is a topic that's so important. We're in a game where learning is big and learning is long. When you're involved in youth sport, it's big and long, the learning, and that's what I want to focus on tonight. So, that's the best one. I'm going to start with a question for all of you. So, who was the best coach you've ever had? And what made him or her so good? You can just think for a few seconds about that. Who was the best coach you've ever had? And what made him or her so good? And is anyone willing just to some good examples? There's probably some not so good examples. I'm not going to ask you for those. But I think the key point is, as a coach, you're likely to have a major impact on somebody's life. In decades' time, people will still be thinking and maybe remembering the impact that you had, just in the way that you guys have just fed back here. So what we're talking about here is really, you're in a situation where you are doing something significant. It's a real chance to make a difference. And that's the next question, really. So what impact are you going to have on the players that you coach? I'm not looking for answers, because that's really the kind of underarching theme for what we're going to talk about today. But have that in your mind and we'll come back to it at the end. But what impact will you have on the players that you coach? So another question, starting with some big questions here. But before I ask it, are most of the people here coaching their sons? I mean, show of hands, are you coaching your sons? Pretty much everyone? Yeah. I was the same coaching my daughter in the football. So, yeah, you're probably involved in the coaching because of your sons, but more than that, why are you coaching? Okay, what aspects is it? I'm sure maybe you enjoy the camaraderie of being in a group of coaches. Maybe you love the game of rugby, you want to give something back. Maybe you love touring, maybe you like the kit that you get to wear. But can you, in pairs, just for a couple of minutes, maybe a minute each, deeper than you're coaching because your son wants to play, but deeper than that, can you have a conversation around why you're coaching? So just pair up with somebody else for a couple of minutes. Because it's personal to you, your motivations. But I will say this, there'll be times when it's tough, there'll be times when you think, why bother? But reconnecting, understanding purpose, the real reason, the proper reason why you're doing that, is important to have and important to reflect on every now and again. Okay. I was on the website to prep for this. I picked up perspectives from just a year ago, so I hope it's not too out of date. But the vision for the Academy on that, one club, one culture, one community. So we'll just give you a minute to read through what the vision is, unless you've already got it etched in your minds. So I've highlighted the bits in yellow. They jumped out at me as being, particularly important. So the hard work, talent, humility, enabling everyone to achieve their potential and stay in rugby for life. That's a great phrase. So that's the vision. Can anyone take issue with that? Are people bought into that's what the vision of what we're trying to do is in the Academy? Yeah, it's a pretty powerful vision to me. So there's also a rugby philosophy, and again, just to remind yourselves what the philosophy is, there's 2 guiding principles here. Play a brand of rugby that both excites and entertains and that achieves success for every member of Boroughmuir, be they player, coach, official or club member. And secondly, to be guided by the ethos that we develop every player, coach and match official as an individual, give them all possible support on their way to fulfilling their potential. So again, I've highlighted in yellow some of the things that stood out for me. And again, I don't know if things have moved on or thinking's moved on at all, but it seems quite a powerful philosophy for me. People, again, in agreement broadly with what we've got up there. Yep. So these are big, these are really great statements that we're making. I guess the challenge will be how do we live up to them? And another way to look at this is, what would the outside-in view? We just watched the game there Wellington. What were the likes of those guys and Stirling and other teams, maybe the less strong teams that you play against? What view are they going to have of us? So how do we want others to view us when they play against our teams? Firstly, the type of rugby that we play, and secondly, how we, coaches, players and parents, how we conduct ourselves, how we behave before, during and after matches. So just maybe in your groups and sitting at your tables or in 3s or 4s, whatever works out, can you just take a few minutes to discuss these points here? How do we want other clubs to view us? Firstly, talk about the type of rugby that we're playing, and then secondly, about how we're conducting ourselves, how we're behaving. Okay, we could just wrap things up there, and I know you could easily spend an hour just talking about these questions here. I just want to pick up a flavour maybe of some of the discussion. So in terms of the type of rugby we play, any feedback anyone's willing to share, some of the stuff that was discussed?
Depends on what you mean by type of rugby.
Okay.
If you're meaning type of rugby in terms of wide expansive winger scoring, forward dominance, that's one type. But in my head, when I think type of rugby, it's the type of attitude of the rugby we play.
Okay.
It's as important as the actual what it looks like on the field. It's how we present as a team of players, i.e. togetherness, supporting each other. That's to me, that's a brand of rugby.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Skills.
Great. Yeah. Any other points? Type of rugby. How do we want others to think when they're playing a Boroughmuir team? What they know is going to happen.
We talked about, so we had a mix here of minis and middies. So
yep.
we talked for both. But in the minis, we talked about involving everybody. So not just, you've got the 1 or 2 big boys and you always give it to them to start, having a mix so that it's really inclusive and everybody's involved.
Yep.
As you go up, the middies, there might, as you start to get more of a strategy and a set way of playing, there might be the bigger boys that you use at the beginning and then you're getting wider as you go along, but to start with making sure everybody's involved.
Okay, good. Anything else? Big table here? Anything from here?
Lots of attack.
Attack, yeah.
No, that's obviously a Graham Shield philosophy of just attack. So that's what we'd always want to do.
Yep.
Rather than just doing the battering ram approach, using all the guys in it. I mean, it's good to hear the use of being inclusive, because that's really something that you do try and foster right the way through.
Yep. Good. Okay. And I've talked about how, in the second point there, how we conduct ourselves, coaches, players, parents. What do we want the outside world to think of that? You, Scott.
I think it's one. I think we'd always like people, certainly other clubs to look at us as though, we're a friendly club. We don't cause any issues. Certainly not within reason. Certainly, I think compared to other clubs, parents and stuff at the sidelines, we're way better than a lot we've come across even this year. To be honest, sometimes there has been a couple of times this year, certainly 18s. You just sort of go, are they they do those things. You know, I don't think they're promoting their club maybe the way we are. And certainly, I would like to think that all our age groups do conduct themselves, on the whole, pretty well.
Yep.
And I'd hate to hear that they weren't,
Yep.
because it would certainly get fed back to us, I think, from other clubs and everything else if it wasn't. So,
Good.
Yeah, it's a difficult one.
Yep.
Also discipline on the part, the team
Right.
on the
Yeah.
part.
Yep.
Certainly from an under 18's point of view, and somebody that has been spending a bit of time with first aid, some of the teams we've come up against have been using tactics I wouldn't like to see our team using.
Yep.
It's been interesting to see from that point of view.
Yep.
So I think from my point of view, our team are pretty well behaved.
Yep.
On the park, you know, pretty disciplined. Would have been certainly when we've been pushed and against, they've stuck to it, stuck to the plan, which has been good.
Good. Anything from the back of the room on this second point?
I would like to say that we're pretty enthusiastic as a club, so if we
Yeah.
do something well, it's talked about. That's what we should be doing. We should be talking about what we do well. Players as well, if somebody does something good, there should be an openness to celebrate what they've done. It shouldn't be like, oh, you can't celebrate too hard. It should be like, well done. It should be in a positive manner. So you're saying well done to that person. You're not saying you're rubbish to the other people. And I think that's something that we do quite well as a club, is we try and be enthusiastic. I think with a few of our teams we need to work on talking to referees. I think that's something that we are actually not very good at, because we're a pretty knowledgeable club and we teach our kids pretty well, so they know a lot, and they like to tell the referee what they know.
Looked at the vision of the academy, the rugby philosophy. We've now, at least had a chance to discuss and reflect on how we want others to view us. So it's really now comes down to how do we put some of this in practice, and to me it's about the how we coach. I'm not going to touch what you coach, because you're the ones doing the coaching, you're doing the training courses, you're getting advice coming in from other parts, but it's the how we coach. It's a culture around the academy section that I want to kind of move on to now. And I'm sure most of you would be aware mindset has been quite a hot topic over the last few years. And it's kind of a way of looking at motivation towards things. And I like to think of it as a sort of continuum. It's not, to me, it's not one or the other, but let's just present it like that. So on the left-hand side, we've got a fixed mindset. And when you have a fixed mindset, you think ability and talent are innate. You either have it or you don't have it. And the performance, so how you perform in a match, etc., that gives you feedback about that ability that you have. Growth mindsets, the other end of the spectrum, so you believe you can grow and improve. Performance, sorry, it's cut off some of the side of this. Performance is an indicator of effort and strategy, so it's the other side of things. Carol Dweck, who's an author who's written a lot on mindset. A lot of the research comes from education, but it's been widely applied to sport over the last 5 years at least, I would say. Has a good description of it. People with a fixed mindset think effort is for people without talent. They're afraid of making mistakes, so they hide them. Learning takes a backseat to looking good. It's in the growth mindset where people believe that you can develop talent. It's not fixed. That's the whole idea. Effort, learning, confronting mistakes, it's inherent in the framework. So if you wanted to try and summarise it in a way, if you give somebody a difficult thing to do, maybe it's just out of their current ability level. People in a fixed mindset would say, I can't do it. Somebody over here in the growth mindset might say, I can't do it yet. And that extra word yet is the key word. And that in a way kind of summarises the difference between the two of them. And there's a few more ways to look at it, fixed against growth. So we've touched on challenges. Fixed mindset, you try and avoid challenges. if it might show you've got a low level of skill or competence. In a growth mindset, you're embracing them, chance to test your skills, develop new ones. Obstacles. Fixed mindset, you tend to give up easily if you can't get immediate success. If you're over in the growth mindset, persisting following setbacks. So as we keep going down, you can see how important the kind of growth mindset ones are. Criticism, seeking out feedback in a growth mindset, as opposed to a fixed mindset might not want to get any criticism, might not any feedback at all, just because of the risk that they get criticised. Results as well, the bottom one there. So a fixed mindset tend to improve rapidly at things, but then plateau early, and ultimately achieve less than their full potential. That's what the research shows. Whereas a growth mindset is a much more balanced view of the role of effort in achievement. I suppose some of the key points are, well, one of the key points is that the mindset can change, okay? And how we coach and the culture we have around the academy can affect the mindset that our players have. And obviously we want to be encouraging as much as we can people to have a growth mindset. I mean, when you look down that list, can you think of players in your team who display quite a lot of fixed mindset behaviour? So one of the, you can see I was on the website quite a bit, but one of the stated aims of the Academy is to create a strong growth mindset development culture across the club, so that's great to hear, and that's why we're talking about this tonight. And growth mindset can be developed in what we call a mastery or task climate. So mastery being focusing on getting better rather than just on winning on the scoreboard, and that's absolutely key. So one of the key messages anyone would get out of sports psychology is focus on what you can control. So that's what underpins what we're trying to do here. What you focus on effort levels. That's totally within the control of the player. Learning and improvement. And the third thing is critical, is bouncing back from mistakes. So how we treat mistakes, being able to bounce back from them, is absolutely vital to encouraging a mastery climate and a growth mindset. And just this last bullet point there it's just a word of caution about the language we use, the messages we give, because a simple statement such as "that was a great play, you've got talent" is very different. Can be message received very differently than "that was a great play, you've been working really hard. You worked really hard off the ball to get in that position to do that." Yes, to show your speed, etc. But focusing on the effort and maybe the learning that's gone in. I think that's when you can see and maybe just triggers in us maybe thoughts about how are we communicating, what words are we using to the kids. What are we trying to encourage? A growth mindset as much as we can. So can we focus on the effort and their learning? And we'll talk in a second about bouncing back from mistakes in the comments and feedback that we're giving the players. Again, in small groups, can you make it no more than 3? Just so I can think if it's a big group of 7 or 8, you probably don't bounce as many ideas off you, but no more than 3. As coaches, what is our attitude towards mistakes? Just for a couple of minutes. Will affect what players think, what they feel, and ultimately what they do. Yes, so we're trying to ensure that people bounce back from mistakes. Really want to avoid people dwelling on mistakes. To do that, there's negative self-talk. That they say things to themselves: "I'm useless," or "I can't do this," or "I can't do that." They lose the present moment focus. As soon as a sports person loses their focus on the present moment, they start dwelling on what's happened in the past or worrying what's going to happen in the future. Then that usually ends in disaster. You get snowballing errors, players going into their shells, people trying to overcompensate. Are these some of the things that we see from our players? Yeah. The way our players react in training and matches when they're making mistakes. So it's so important. We want them bouncing back. We want them to park the mistake, the error, as quickly as they can and get focused on the next play. Again, much easier said than done, but there are things we can do. I've called them here mistake rituals, but training the kids through the training sessions, and so they're using them in matches as well, to have little rituals that can help them put the mistake behind them. There's 3 examples here. One's a flush. Imagine you're flushing the toilet. That's it. It's gone. You know, it's okay. Flush it away. Next play. Another one, no sweat. You know, it's a visual thing. But again, the kids from a young age, can we get them looking at that, or maybe brush it off? Right. That's a mistake done. Right. Next play. But something like that, some physical trigger, well taught, practicing training, can be a good way to park mistakes, because parking mistakes all the way up to, you know, the top level in sport, you know, finding ways of dealing with mistakes is you know, it's like a holy grail of sport. And so, you know, we've got influence, we've got the opportunity here, coaching people from a young age. Can we get them in the habit of dealing with mistakes in a positive way, so that they can put them to one side and get focused on the next play? Are there any other suggestions? Another thing, just on the mastery climate, again, we haven't got too much time, but, you know, you can think about, everyone's got an emotional tank. You can be like think of it as a fuel tank. Can we as coaches fill our players' emotional tanks? The sort of things we're talking about here are truthful, specific praise, expressing appreciation for things, really listening to people when they're talking to you, your players. You know, positive gestures, smiling, clapping, nodding, thumbs up. On the other side, the things that are going to drain the tanks, emotional tanks of people, are criticism and correction, sarcasm, being ignored, frowning, eye rolling, heavy sighing. All the things that we probably catch ourselves doing every now and again. But, you know, it's particularly important because not all the kids that turn up to training are going to have their emotional tanks at a good level. Yes, there's going to be people who maybe for home reasons, for school reasons, things that are happening with their friends or whatever, are going to be turning up to training with a low tank already. So, you know, if we start draining that straight away, I think it's really going to be bad for that kid, and it's going to be counterproductive coming to training. We don't want that. There's something called the magic ratio, and again, a lot of the research comes from education, but which says that you should have a ratio of tank fillers to criticism should be 5 to 1, right? In the classroom, if it's only 2 to 1, you start to get kids who are despairing, yeah? 2 to 1. If we think about how we're coaching, and it's not that different to the classroom really, if you think about it, but can we push up the ratio of tank fillers to criticism that we're given? Yeah. 5 might be tough, yes. But I'll tell you, Phil Jackson, who was a Chicago Bulls NBA winning coach, when he got to understand a lot of this research, he changed the way he coached. This is the guy who was already coaching at the very top level. He changed the way he coached his players, and he got a huge amount of success from trying to fill emotional tanks and be aware of filling emotional tanks and reducing the amount of criticism. So that's at the very highest level. So the level we're coaching at, the age that people are at, can we make a real effort to be filling up people's tanks? Just something to consider. Yeah. Okay, so we saw from the start, most people in the room are coaching their own child, and that presents challenges. So I want to just talk about this for a few minutes. Again, to me, it's a continuum. You've got very hard on your child on one side, strongly favour your own child. So my kids use the word favouritize. I don't know why. What's wrong with favour? You know. Anyway, favouritize, and you know, treat completely fairly in the middle. If you think about the way you coach your own child, you know, we're likely to be to one side or the other, yeah, for different reasons. I got a question to you. Was anyone here coached by their own father when they were playing? Yeah. All right. Okay. Yes. Positive experience. You're within cuffing range. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it can be a fantastic thing. You know, a positive shared experience. You know, it absolutely can be, but it needs to be carefully managed. I was listening to John Beattie on the radio a few years ago. He was interviewing Keith Wood. Keith Wood had a child, he was talking about, after the rugby matches, I'd tell him, you know, we'd have a chat about the game and all the things that he could have done and maybe the things he shouldn't have done. And John Beattie said, you know, I take the opposite view. You know, after a game, I don't talk to them about the game at all. And it may be something to think about. The way, you know, when I read about that, it made me think. You know, I was coaching my daughter. It made me think. You know, do we want them to own their experience? Yep. Do we want to give them space to process defeats, victories, learnings? Yep. You know, some kids will will dread jumping in the car after a game because they know there's a conversation coming. Yeah, they will do. And you know, I think it's a real discipline as coaches or parents. Can we take ourselves away from that? Can we put music on? Can we have a conversation about something totally different? Can we let the kid process what's going on? And then later on, if they want to talk about the game, you can, you know, then you can do it then. But I don't think having that conversation straight after the match is the time to do it.
If he's had a really bad game, I'll just make him walk home.
Then you'll be waiting
Do you have any?
Take some time for yourself.
You might want to consider, you know, maybe you know, you're lucky enough to have a number of coaches in your squad by the sound of things. So maybe you know, another coach can lead some of the instruction, lead some of the feedback to your child. You know, you can have a session when that happens, and you're not the person who's giving that instruction or giving that feedback. And again, you can flip it the other way. Is that something worth doing? It's worth trying. I would suggest. You know, like I say, it can be a really positive experience. Let's make it as positive as it can.
It relies on an honest answer from your fellow coaches.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, you might not also want to think,
Yep. Case study, but again, I think we probably haven't got time to do that. But I would like to spend the last 10 minutes or so talking about success. So maybe we can just open this up rather than split it into groups. So how do we measure success? So the first question, as an academy, how should we measure success? What does success look like?
People want
as an academy?
Players want to come and play here.
Yeah.
Players want to come here, yeah, and come here and play. Yeah.
How many youth players become adult players?
Yes.
It's really the only true measure of an academy. It's based on the club philosophy.
Yep, that's a fantastic point. So, you know, is it something that we track?
Yeah.
Is it? So when people leave the academy and, you know, maybe go to university or elsewhere, we're keeping it.
Yeah, but now do actually. It was something probably in the past that the club was guilty of, that somebody left under 18s and it was kind of bye, see you later.
Yep.
Now, certainly last year we had myself and Roscoe and I certainly we met with every under 18 player that was transitioning or going to senior rugby or going to university or college, just to find out what they were doing. So, and every one of them said that we would still continue playing rugby. So, and I think they all are looking at different universities, clubs. Some are playing for the first 15 now, some are playing seconds, which is great, and as I say, some are playing for colleges because they're obviously moved elsewhere. We've had a chat about this to actually make sure that going forward we'll have even more of a kind of link to them. So how we do that, and other clubs do it, and Meraki's do it very well, and it's how we still keep them belonging to Boroughmuir, even though they are away. You know, we've still got a lot of them joint registered, so if they are back here from the university, they're more than welcome to come to training. If there's a game going on and there's a game that can be a game for the second, if it's a friendly, we'll put them in the seniors. So it's just getting that process in place now that we are beginning to kind of track them and keep in touch with them more.
Great.
That was never there before.
Okay, that's fantastic.
I also think that another way we can measure it is how many players at, say, under 14s or 15s actually progress into senior rugby Super 6.
Yep. So representative honours and that sort of stuff, absolutely.
Yes.
Because, you know, we're trying to push on the best players.
Well, if you reflect what we actually are, which is an academy, if you look at the other academies within the country, that's what they're looking for.
Yep.
You know, and that's what we should be looking for.
Yep.
Because I mean, ideally, we know there's over 300 kids in the academy.
Yep.
But the reality is we couldn't play 300 kids as seniors.
Sure.
But we also know we're not going to keep 300. But if we can measure the success of how many of the kids that we've got now at 15 in 5 years' time when they're 20 are playing Super 6 rugby or senior rugby at a high level.
Absolutely.
I don't even think it's necessarily at a high level. I mean, just having people playing rugby. I mean,
Yeah, no.
And I think Scott made that point as well.
Different measures of
Yeah,
success.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, for some players, their high level of rugby may not be this. It might
It's
be
achieving their,
several divisions
it's
lower.
achieving their
But
potential.
that's
I think we have
absolutely
that in
fine.
the
They're
vision.
still playing rugby.
Yep.
And
we've got to count people who
that's
come back into the reprobates, you know. And
So that goes right back to our philosophy at the very start. We start
Yes.
all the tag was achieving their potential.
You're right,
So
absolutely right.
there are measures, and arguably there's some in Super 6.
For some people, that's what the
But
potential is.
For,
Yes.
for many people, the measure of success is that they can leave the club or stay at the club and say, I have got the absolute best I can do, and that they know it in their heads.
Yep.
Because if we're going to go in the whole thing of lifelong learning, that's what the takeaway is. I have been able to achieve the best I can at something.
Yep.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think coaching P5s, how I measure it, did everyone throw a pass? Did everyone catch a pass? Did everyone score a try? Did we have one try where everyone did all of that? And at the end of the game, can the kids tell me why that worked? That'll probably do at primary 5.
Exactly. And that's why I made the distinction. And again, if we had more time, we'd maybe be able to discuss the different age groups. But again, it's something I just want you guys to take away and think about. But also that to point B, have we communicated, how do we communicate this to the parents and to the players, that this is what success looks like, this is what we're trying to achieve this year as an age group or whatever. It might be something, I don't know how you go about doing that, if it's a meeting with the parents at different stages, if you're doing parents' evening type things where you get the parents in with the kid to talk about progress, these sorts of things. There might be some groups who've got individual development plan for players. So, success for them is for players to move on with their skill level or their ability to deal with making mistakes or concentration levels or all these sorts of things. So there's quite a few different ways to go about it. Again, if we had more time, we could cover this in more detail, but think about what success for your age group would look like, and then trying to find a way of tracking against that. Okay, some final thoughts. Well, no surprise, they're probably questions rather than thoughts, but as I said at the start, what impact are you going to have on the players that you coach? What can you do to create a mastery climate and encourage players to have a growth mindset? And what does big picture success looks like? And everything I've heard from you guys tonight tells me that you're thinking big picture, and that's fantastic. But if there's 3 sort of takeaways that you need to go away and think about, maybe get down on paper if need be, chat to the other coaches about. That's what I'd like you to take away. It's a fantastic book. I think anyone coaching in youth sport should read. I've got it here. It's only 70 pages long. The Power of Double Goal Coaching. A lot of what I covered tonight is within this. It's really well written. It's very applicable. Some of the case study type stuff I was thinking of doing, well, they've got examples at the back of that. But to me, like I say, anyone who's coaching in youth sport should read this. The double goal being coaching for success in the sport, absolutely, but wider than that, coaching for success in a wider way. We're talking about things like the growth mindset, the mastery climate, filling emotional tanks, how you deal with issues with parents, coaches, other coaches, certain players. I think it's a fantastic book. I recommend that. And just lastly,